You have a big energy deal that's in the works right now, and you announced it with a lot of fanfare, a $26 billion natural gas pipeline, which would bring natural gas from Alaska through Canada down to the lower 48. Not everyone is enthused, including the Wall Street Journal. They say this: among the most serious questions it faces is whether the Alaskan gas is even needed. North America is in the midst of a natural gas glut, driving down prices, and observers believe liquefied natural gas imports are set to grow as overseas producers seek to unload their gas in the United States. Why do you disagree with the Wall Street Journal?
Wow, I think very short-sighted of whomever wrote that for the Wall Street Journal, assuming that market conditions are going to stay as they are today. Demand for natural gas is increasing. In fact, by probably 2030, we'll see about a 40% increase in demand for natural gas. Domestically, we have the supply. The resources are up there in Alaska, and it's time that we build this infrastructure and flow that very valuable resource into hungry markets throughout the U.S. This is going to be the largest energy project in the world by the private sector. It's a great venue that we have, a vehicle called AGIA, the Alaska Gas Line Inducement Act, and believe me, Exxon, the largest company in the world, and TransCanada, the best pipeline building company in the world, I'm sure they would not have aligned and committed to building this project had they not crunched the numbers and figured out that for their bottom line and for our nation's security and for our environment, for our economy, this project is right. It is time. Short-sighted to assume that there won't be growing demand for energy sources.
It's more energy independence as well. Instead of importing this kind of energy, it's here, it's homegrown in the United States. That's a significant development potentially, but it's not cheap. Who's going to pay for all of this?
The private sector, thank goodness. I mean, this isn't a government program. It's not a government service, and heaven forbid anybody think that this infrastructure project needs to be nationalized. And we have to keep our eyes and ears open to make sure that nobody thinks that the federal government should ever come in and take control over an energy project like this. There is a need for it. The economy is asking for such a stimulus package as this to create the jobs. Thousands and thousands of jobs will be created with the construction and the operation then of this pipeline. It's time. It's ready to do it, and it's a private sector project, as well it should be.
How long is it going to take to build it?
It should be about a decade before that energy flows. These are long lead time type projects. I mean, we've been talking about it and planning for it in Alaska for decades, but it took this alignment that was announced yesterday to really see the path forward made much clearer. The project will come to fruition. And
the grumbling you're hearing from some politicians in Alaska, in your home state, how do you react to those complaints that they're saying, you know what, this is not necessarily such a great idea?
Well, a couple of the politicians who are up for re-election and they're trying to position themselves, you know, they have to kind of distance themselves from some of the positions that the administration has taken for political reasons, I believe. But the numbers speak for themselves. Largest companies in the world aligning to get the project built for national security reasons and for our environment and for our economy. Even those politicians up in Alaska. And really, well, I think they do support it. They voted for it. I think there's just some political wrangling going on right now to position themselves.
On the economic stimulus package, and I want to just clarify this, originally you were supposed to get Alaska $288 million in stimulus money that you didn't want. You said the state didn't need it, didn't want it, didn't like the strings that were attached to it. In the end, you're going to get everything but about $28 million, and maybe even that you'll have to take as well. What happened here? The original reluctance on your part to accept the money from the federal government, but now you're going to accept it.
You know, legislators across the country, including in Alaska, many resolved to take the money anyway, to go around governors, and via resolution said, well, we're going to apply for the money anyway. Look what happened in South Carolina, where the governor said, no, I'm not going to take the money, and they ended up in court, and the judiciary told the administrative branch, which is an odd mingling there of branches of government, the judiciary told that governor, you're going to take the money anyway. There are fat strings attached to these federal dollars, not the least of which is an attachment to contributing to the dizzying debt of our nation and borrowed money to supply the funds to grow this government that the stimulus package is all about. I've had great hesitancy in embracing such a thing, and I did veto some of the money. Our lawmakers are discussing now whether they'll override that veto more power to them in that debate, whether they should override or not. That's the beauty of our democracy, the checks and balances that are in place. That protects the people whom we're serving. So discussion on whether they'll override my action, again, hesitant to accept some of these energy funds because they're tied to energy building codes, universal building codes that for the most part communities in Alaska have opted out of. We don't want the federal government mandating to a local community or a business or a family how they can build and develop opportunities for more progress in an individual's life. We don't necessarily think that it's the right way to go is to allow the federal government to mandate more universal codes on how we'll develop.
How do you think President Obama is doing now in these early months as president?